Hello and welcome everyone. There we go. Hello and welcome everyone to the new teachings of Andrew Bartzis. This is our reaction video. We've decided to change things up a little bit and to react to some of the old material. We encourage all of the audience to get involved and leave your comments. And we will be discussing this old material. So of course we'd like to welcome the man himself, Andrew Bartzis.
Hello everybody. How does it go with you all today?
I've had a good day, a great day. I've had a great couple of days actually. We've got Dale Tobin.
Hello everyone. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Hello.
And Laura Massey.
Hi everyone, welcome to this. Should be a great show because I love looking at Andrew's old material and learning something new from it every time. Good to be here.
That's right. So which clip have we decided on we're going to do first then, guys?
To use the first galactic history video I did with Lance White.
Old stuff.
Now, as part of reaction, it's probably been, I don't know, maybe 2 years since I've watched these videos. I've watched them many, many, many times. Maybe a year. I think probably more like a year since I've watched these videos. And even to me, new things come every time. A very unique point in our time, space, and history. And if people are out there that are new to this material, this was done in June 20, summer solstice 2012. Sorry, 2013. Summer solstice 2013, yeah.
And this series was the first series I ever watched, or the first video I ever watched of Andrew was, I think it was episode number 8. I put it on, I was like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And I put it on again. I was like, the information's quite hard to listen to, but I'll keep trying and trying. And I said, yeah, and there we go. So it means a lot to me and my spiritual growth as well, this series.
And for everybody that is out there, just take a moment to let yourself go back to being just a deep, relaxed show. This is show inside show, inside show, inside a show. That's a show itself.
It's a multi-dimensional show.
You saying, Andrew, what, a show within a show? Should we do a show watching a show? Yes.
That's about it. That's about our simulation. So remember these words that you'll be hearing in this thing. In 2012, language that is common today only because it's been repeated the last 10 years. That's something that many of you will begin to notice about many of these early teachings, all the languages in there.
Yes. And the
all right,
information...
Joel, go ahead, Laura.
I was just going to say, it's not the information that's changed, it's the perspectives that have changed in that time.
Right. So now everybody to understand, if you have not watched these videos, Lance is a little jump around everything because he was excited. This was brand new. Nobody understood the material. I'd been doing shows for maybe 4 months and grown a pretty huge audience, like in a matter of a few weeks to a few months. And so, Joel, go ahead and play. We will have you pause through different things and make comments on different parts of it.
Greetings. Today is June 21st, 2013, the day of the summer solstice. This video is being created at Stewart Mineral Springs in Mount Shasta. The purpose of this interview is to document our galactic history going back approximately 54 million years with Andrew Bartzis, a galactic historian. Andrew has the unique ability to read the Akashic records.
Something
My name is Lance, and I'm best known for the radio show A Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic at BBS Radio. So let's meet Andrew now and talk to him. Hi, Andrew.
How are you doing? Good today. Glad you were able to come to the event here.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful place here.
Well, it's great to meet you, and I I was taken with your information instantly, and so I thought maybe we could start out with your definition of a galactic historian, how you got to read the Akashic records, and we can kind of segue into where. Yes, which is all I want to know.
Well, a galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma. One planet in this actually creates karma that's war-based. This planet creates drama music-based or soul-based. They create lines of drama. And a planet will generally have a theme. Not all karma is bad. Not all karma is good. Some of it's just in between. A galactic historian goes to each and every line of dramatic karma and lives in soul family with everyone, so they see the big picture of all of the karma that's going on in a local part of the universe. What makes it very difficult is you have to have true love with someone in that soul family in each and every time. So the truth about the galactic historian is, to become one, you have to go to all of the worlds, live in all their incarnation and reincarnation cycles, and be soul family to each one. When our solar system was built from the ground up to clear out the karma of the universe, everyone was put here. And I'd already lived the lifetimes. There were 4 people ahead of me in this world that had the opportunity to say yes. They said no. When it came to my turn, I said yes. There's 2 people beyond me that can say yes or no if it comes to their turn. That's the basic definition of the galactic historian. Being soul family to
All right. Those that come after, if it becomes their turn. So many people ask me this over and over again, whatever happened. Once I said yes, I became a living fixed position of time for that. Now, there are other galactic historians who other frames of time existence, and we all come together as a collective group at the end. But we're each individual being spawned from an individual set of times. And because I explained in that way of having to live in each and every soul family's lines of galactic level drama and have true love in each one, you must understand the magnitude of what that means. You're running 2, 3, 4, 500 simultaneous true love lifetimes by one master soul.
And this was the first time that I'd ever heard the word karma used in the context that you've used it here. And it just changed everything I understood about, well, it added a whole new envelope of mechanics to consider. It was the first time I ever heard it.
All right, let's go back and play.
everyone means traveled a lot. I'm old.
I guess so. I guess so. Now, when did you first start to gain an understanding of the Akashic records, and how does that work for you, and how has that evolved?
When I was still an innocent little kid, I was doing it then, but nowhere near the power levels that I do now, or the ability now. When I was 9 years old, my dad took me to a baseball game at Cleveland Stadium. Bottom of the ninth inning, a tie game, somebody hits a home run, the whole stadium cheers. At that point, I downloaded all the Akashic records of everyone that was there, 3,000 plus people. Even people miles away from the stadium. At that point, I knew I was different. I searched my mind. What was Atlantis? What was Lemuria? What was Dekanara? Speaking in soul languages and not being able to communicate with this to my family, they just wouldn't understand. Where do you begin to even say that to anyone? Love my family, they're great people, and every family has a dysfunction in it, but knew I couldn't say anything. Just knew it. There was a period where there were guides from Hollow Earth that came there and helped me redeposit the information in my brain into my cellular memory, and it's literally in your skeletal energy. It's not in your muscular fiber. Even though we as species today use our skin to store imagery or messages, and we shouldn't, it should all be within our cellular memory of our skeletal structure.
Can pause there.
So, we're in the process of
the teachings of the skeleton and the observations of the aura begin right there. You guys have all heard me say I look at the atlas at axis. That tells you everything. It's the center of the part of the skeleton how consciousness interacts.
Yeah.
And that storing memories in your skeleton is one of those things that should be natural process for us, but it has been dumbed out of our greater thinking.
Can I just ask, when you're at the baseball game and you had all of the 10,000, all the information coming in, the Akashic record, I know it's hard to put into words what it felt like, Andrew, but what was kind of going on then? What, as a feeling, as a human, what was it feel like when that was going on?
As I got older, that reflection changed as I understood more about what was working around me. So in the beginning, it was a 9-year-old brain getting access to information that the curiosity stream just ran and ran and ran and ran and ran until the curiosity stream ran out. And at that point, that's where the higher soul kicked it in and gave me multi-level planetary consciousness access. So I could communicate with this celestial earth and all of the brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins and nephews that were related to this galactic drama that I had a direct Akashic record access to from living in their lineage.
So is that when you realized you weren't as lonely as I think you were saying
Yes,
in the beginning? It was a lonely journey to start.
Yes, that is where I was able to solidify my internal journey, and the celestial minds that I could work with would not necessarily be that replacement, but more like a set of guide stones of personal daily growth. That to hold on to this power, the personal daily growth, was the absolute vital importance to it. And that eventually I would have to teach people of how vitally important it is. We are the boots on the ground here. We cannot be out of our bodies and doing nothing here. Anybody else want to react on that? Yes, true love in another soul family. You have no idea how hard that is, to difficult, and to do it in all of them at once. And that, when I look back at those lifetimes, the amount of people that were supporting both sides was monumental. Okay, so the level of, degrees of separation work, 20, 30, even 50 degrees of separation. Imagine how far away is 50 degrees of separation at the soul incarnation level. It's multi-universal. Big picture, can you give an example of how to do it even once? Faith. And it's a faith. Love is a faith, and faith is a love journey to be experienced as it ever evolves, as it keeps changing, rotating, rediscovering a new geometry that redefines the love and flow. Did I ever go into denial? Hell yeah. Oh yeah, there are many, many times. Where's this shit coming from? Okay, because my unknowingness was, how can I just open up and talk about a subject I know absolutely nothing about? And then at what point in time is 20 straight minutes or 40 straight minutes of a stream, which would knock people out before? Okay, I had to learn to control that energy without knocking people out.
Didn't you think you were a galactic news reporter for a while?
Yeah, that was early on. I when I was trying to understand what my role in the future would be, and then I'd have no idea how far in the future that would be. Okay, yeah, I thought I was going to be work for any of the big news channels. Okay, and I would give them the update on what's going on in the off-world worlds and what's coming here, and an update on your awakening.
And that's something you don't really do, and now you're like, no, I don't want to do that. It's not going to grow anyone. It's kind of now. It's like, fuck that.
In those early stages, we want the narrative, don't we, to confirm things to us, and the narrative is so insidious that at the beginning of the journeys we can't imagine our journeys without the narrative playing a part in it.
Mm-hmm. So, Lillian, yes, I asked why me tens of thousands of times until I came to the infinite answer of why me. And the key is infinite answer of why me.
There's no
and the rest
answer.
is can you maintain the commitment, courage, and discipline to do? You can still go into big mass media in the place life is going everywhere as possible. Yes, to an extent. I asked why not me either. There are plenty of times I wanted to give it up. But that was the commitment, courage, and discipline to not give up on the potentiality that I had already seen.
How difficult was it?
And know was factual truth.
How difficult was it not to look at your own future?
Very difficult. But I did look at my own future.
Mm.
And all of the choices that would send me off of the choices. And all the choices that would send me onto the choices, and why those choices were made in that moment of mental, spiritual, personal history. Mm. And all the equations that got to that moment of choice, and what that choice moment did here or there, until I understood the fundamental teachings about choice itself.
Because I bet from a young age, if you're trying to look at your future with this type of awareness, then you're going to have to learn the mechanics of the different timelines and choices, free will,
absolutely,
potentialities. I imagine just trying to look at your future would have opened up a whole new load of teachings for you at that young time.
Which then occupied my brain as processing data, which is where I was able to realize that I wasn't getting a single Akashic stream from this world. I was getting multiple Akashic streams from multiple worlds simultaneously. And that's what made me, it's absolutely different than all the others that were doing this process.
Yeah.
The simultaneously intermixing of multiple Akashic records from multiple worlds, which is why I was counseled by the celestial planets when I was young, to have that frequency built into me like an extra language. The celestial language was my second language, or my first language.
What was it like for you looking into darkness and not being say at a young age when you're looking at all these streams of information, what was the kind of like catalyst for you to learn the neutral perspective? And because thinking about it, like if I was that young and I was looking into all this information, some of the darkness would probably change me a little bit. What was it like for you going into that dark? Yeah.
Sure. I had set up tests for myself early on of remaining sacral neutral. The volume that you look at looks back at you. And it was a specific teaching that the precognitive workforce had created for me, which was me. So the greater aspect was to rediscover how to learn multidimensional thinking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the language that it took to translate to this world.
And that's when you
Hence
talk
the very
about
early start.
downloading and unpacking the celestial code, isn't it?
Right. And early on, I did that at a very, very high level, which imprinted onto me a central nervous system that could handle that at an early age.
Yeah.
Data did the double of data. So Lillian, once you mentioned that you came in through the back door into this. Hold on. You go backdoor process. Yes, the backdoor process was. How do I describe this? When you're a part of a soul family, it gives you credits and credentials to immediately get into a realm. If you have multiple soul family credentials that are in opposition, like one says you can get in and one says you can't, there has to come down to the court or the system that allows it in, which at that time would be the avatar asshole peoples. That would determine who's getting in and getting out. Well, that's no longer a process anymore. But back then there was a way to manipulate the spiritual contracts, which was like a backdoor entrance. All right, let's go back and have it play some more.
Of learning about Earth's history, and apparently there's been quite a lot of shenanigans and playing with timelines and so on and so forth. Most of us are familiar with the basic story that's come through various channels and who some of the players are. But you're going to take us back starting about what,
52 million to 54 million. Well, we lost 2 million years of history when Earth wasn't in this universe anymore.
Okay, what happened?
It was a big prize that a galactic sentience of another universe said, I want to play in this game for a little while. and it came into our universe and said, I'm taking this. And there wasn't enough powerful entities at the time, even the dark guys here, that could stop them. And they put it in another universe for 2 million years and allowed it to seed life in another universe, because that's its original purpose, is to be a galactic seed planet, speaking DNA wisdom to whole new galaxies. And then Earth got mad, basically gave it the middle finger, and it came back over here and got back into the fold of what was going on here.
So it was able to break loose.
Correct. It is a sentience.
Right. Do you have a name for that galactic group?
The universe that it went to?
Right.
We'll just call it the Zolotka.
Okay.
It doesn't have language, and it is intonation, Zilakwa. That's the best way to describe it. It's not a free will universe.
That we have now.
Correct. We are a 100% free will universe. And free will means we can set up our realities based off of the rules that we create in it.
Okay, but our free will has been co-opted over those millions of years.
Correct.
Okay, so then who was next to interfere with the free will of the planet?
Well, Earth had drama while it was being created. Drama is natural. Drama can be, I don't like you because your technology is better than mine, my religion is better than yours. People have ego even at the higher dimensions. It's just functions differently. When karma reaches the point where a sentient species can reach out several galaxies beyond their home planet, you can create karmic pollution to newer planets or younger planets. Earth was one of those that brought good pollution and bad pollution to thousands of worlds. Earth, when it was first rolled out of the seventh dimensional galactic seed planet, its purpose was to have these chakras on its planet that are called wombs, W-O-M-B, like a woman's womb. There, and lived above the womb chakra, their sentience would be influenced to create DNA wisdom through interbreeding with other species, through scientific or spiritual creeds. Thus, Lemuria and Atlantis, where the societies returned to Earth's original purpose while it was in a light part of space where sentience was expanded, knowing full well that they would come into the denser and denser part, and the breeding of souls that were coming in was outweighing them, because the invasion we have is spiritual invasion. It's always been that way. The dark forces have always known technologically wise they can't win, but they figured out a way to manifest energy bodies and force incarnate souls into our world that aren't soul family with us, and to the point they created enough breeding population to make an anchor population for more and more to come in at a faster rate than the good.
Okay. Does some of that include using astral shells that have not crossed over?
Correct.
Okay.
And the walk-in rules and all that.
So it's basically reanimating something that has been that's probably has a negative aspect to it to begin with. So that takes us to what, about?
We'll go 51 million years.
Okay.
51 million years, Earth had already been ripped out of its home galaxy. The original dark forces that invaded from the war galaxy came here and saw Earth and said, that's the prize of the prize of the prize. All these other little planets were nothing to them. So they captured Earth through spiritual invasion, outbred the people there by creating more corrupted souls that caused political devastation, land devastation, and dramatic wars with other places, until finally there was a core group of dark beings who took over the chakra system and the unity consciousness drive of Earth, and then teleported it against its will to another galaxy. That first teleportation greatly injured Earth. It was near dead. And Earth gave out a cry to the universe and beyond, I need help. Massive migrations from the 7 universes ascended on Earth and overbred the dark forces there, kicking them off, but they still had the first interlinking of the anchor societies there. When Earth began to go through its healing process, that would essentially be the dinosaur age.
Okay.
But sentience had been removed from the surface, but brought into it.
Okay. So there is the setup for the Lemurian, the rise and fall of Lemuria, rise and fall of Atlantis, and to the control system that we are here.
I remember this. I remember this being around about the time when everybody was woo-woo about the Great Awakening, and this was the first time that I'd heard somebody actually explain in a way that made sense the situation that we were in and why we were in a position for a Great Awakening. It was the first time anybody had said it in any cognitive way that actually made sense.
So the spiritual invasion. This has been a highly glossed over subject matter. You hear me say it throughout the entire series, but as the series ended and the new rest of the expanded teachings came through, that aspect is not understood. We're about to go through a mass migration here, and the ascension, awakening, remembering, whatever it is that you want to call it, is about the astral worlds packing up with trillions of beings. And instead of hundreds of thousands of new daily life positions being open on the planet, you're talking millions or even billions will be open every day. And it doesn't matter if they're a dog, a cat, a blade of grass, a bee, a duck, or a dinosaur. Once they add their aspect here, they add their aspect to the Akashic record of the way this planet is entwined with all the other planets in the galactic ascension machine, which unravels the greater negative karmic debt that was put here.
So the so-called anchor society of the dark is in perspective much less.
It had to have access to this world where if you lived under a womb chakra, you'd be highly advanced no matter who you are. Other worlds have womb chakras, but very few. Most have one, maybe two. And if you're really, really, really a high spiritual society, they'll have three. You have over 300 on one planet.
So when the Earth volunteered to obviously create this new dream, Andrew, was it all, say, like the fetus has spiritual contracts to obviously things to happen in their life? Did the Earth have that before she came a planet? Did she have all these contracts and knowingness?
Oh yes, that also led her into the bigger thing is, how will I create life for planets and galaxies that are not yet in creation? For I will have a hand and foot and body and soul in the future creations, past, present, and future. That's elevating the celestial societies.
You spoke about they captured the unity consciousness drive when they dragged her from this universe. Is that possible? Is it possible that could happen again? And if not, why not?
No, they don't have access to all the control rooms to do that. Then they had access to all the control rooms.
Yeah. Which was...
And something to understand about the control rooms. They all don't live in one physical permanent spot. They're moving every day in a DNA cipher. If you have to have the totality of human potential DNA to activate all the rooms simultaneously. I tried explaining this, but I simply decided to gave it as called a DNA cipher. Well, the cipher is an immense amount of DNA code that unravels the human potential. And if you don't have that exact DNA code, you won't get access to the rooms.
Was this one of the final fortifications?
Yes, that was the final fortification.
Yeah.
What's the state of the control rooms now? There were about, did you say
There's
40
still
or
there are still
41?
19. There are still that are 19 that are not. They don't know where they're at.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I just said they're constantly moving. So the existing ones that they have move all the time too. But they just have the front door code to get in, so that they can begin to enter the DNA code. You don't enter the DNA code in one place. You have to enter it in all of the nodes simultaneously.
And so when she was taken to this other universe, the time that greatly damaged her, what was the response of whatever was in that universe at the time?
Say that again, you broke up.
Excuse me. So when she was teleported and she went to the other universe and she was very badly damaged, what was the response from that other universe? Did it expect it? Did it play a part in it? Or did it happen against its free will as well?
Well, that's what began a bigger possessionary rule. The possession is 9/10 of the law. You heard that term before?
Yeah.
Possession meant everything to the higher celestial forces at work there. And to get other celestial forces to do things was challenging because they operate over extremely long periods of time. So it did create a lot of issues on many different fronts. But ultimately, Earth could have said no, and she didn't.
Right.
But that was part of biding her time and healing her way and understanding that as she phased back into reality, the mass attractions of this planet would happen no matter what. Okay? And she would be better to deal with what's coming if she had her own internal structures redesigned so that the mass spiritual invasion would happen.
Right.
So was this a point where the Ice Age happened around then for it to heal itself, Andrew? Was that kind of the Earth fortifying itself into
time no longer is in alignment to our linear concepts, and our linear concepts are going to radically change anyways. Okay, so a year is not a year, and that would have been right around 1 billion years ago in our linear conversionary history. Okay, that's when Earth was formed. But we start the galactic history 54 million years ago. What was it doing before then? It was part of this universe when this universe was non-free will, into the switch into free will. Okay, it took time to grow this planet into the finished machine that it was, and within, it was going through its finishing touches. We'll just say when the war world invaded and decided to take it as a prize, the war galaxy. Okay, and I use such simple terms. You got to realize war was new to the galaxy then. That was a new concept. Think that. Beings that were lived tens, hundreds of thousands of lifetimes and they'd never experienced war before? That's how long it took free will to dilute itself down generation to generation to generation. This is about, free will remaining connected to the light and free will, not connected to the light. And that was a journey many beings went down. So from Jason, if we had more remembering access to our latent DNA, would more humans have the potential to access the control rooms? No. You already have to be a master of your mind, body, and spirit as a DNA to even upload the code to the room. It's a genetic computer that has consciousness inside it. All right, do we want to go back to the video?
Yeah, let's do it.
An ethereal realm, so that the surface that we live on, this is the graduating timeline. If you're to become a higher dimensional soul, to interfunction with Earth, or to go out and explicit your consciousness, you have to be on the graduating timeline. Earth has 3 timelines: above, below, center. Center is the graduating timeline.
Okay.
So at this point, Earth kicked off its first. They reinforced the energies of Earth, and they said, we know the spiritual invasion is coming, so this begins the first process of creating pyramids. The first process of creating pyramids was to amplify the consciousness of Earth after the damaging effect of being ripped out of its Earth. The pyramids were placed on shock points, placed on crustal points, enforced the ability for the local sentients to create local realities, and made a grid that was reinforced so that any entity had to go through a filter to determine if it could actually make spiritual contracts with Earth sentients to have sentient kind on graduating timeline. At that point, the dark guys had spread to a few thousand other worlds and began dominating and controlling and mastering the system of domination control in very low-end species. That's where they discovered if they're ever going to take Earth, they knew that in the galactic rotation, Earth would go through very light to to very dark, to very dense spots. And in that dense spot is the place that they can spiritually invade that place and lower the consciousness level of the surface people by influencing the DNA, influencing the soul families, influencing the soul contracts, and literally getting us at every stage of the game and removing how we would naturally live with our planet.
Mm-hmm. So, in other words, we're disconnected from our ability to communicate, commune, and source.
Correct.
So now, when did that begin? So this goes back to the pyramids as well, right?
Well, there's 9 layers of pyramids. Earth has been moved 12 times.
Wow.
Captured 12 times.
Wow.
There are 9 layers of fortifications on the astral world. There's no other planet in the universe or 3 other universes that's been fortified that much.
Wow.
So, you're in a situation where the dark guys capture it, fortify it. The light guys recapture it, fortify it. So on and so forth, until finally the fortification grid and the quarantine of the good guys out there is literally the hindrance of what we have, plus the multi things that are within us, manipulating drama and manipulating spiritual contracts so that when unity consciousness comes, they can program their propaganda of thousands of years will come to fruition. We're raised with amnesia, and we're raised held hostage in a position for entities that want to take the more powerful people and take them somewhere else by their own belief.
Wow. So we're entering another one of those periods of time, like a harvest period, so to speak, or ascension period.
We're ascension period. We're going out of a very dense part and going into a very light part. There's 66 planets in our solar system. The vast majority of them are in the light part of space, and Earth and Mars are stuck in the dense part, anchored by the sleeping people that haven't awoken to their consciousness. They're the ones anchoring us there now.
And there are bases on Mars and
All over.
Everywhere.
I call this world and this solar system the Galactic Antiques Roadshow, because the vast majority of species that got lured into their drama, we're here to salvage the thousands or millions of littering our solar system from the numerous wars over and over and over again.
Wow. Well, no. So, how do we navigate this time? How do we?
Let's look at the 50 million year concept.
Okay.
When time wars began, that's the tricky thing. 480,000 years ago is when the actual time wars began. But time, we're on a planet with 3 timelines. They're only going after the graduating timeline in the beginning.
Okay.
So the first set of multidimensional beings that had incarnated here became 40% of our population. Human beings equaled 40% of humanity. At that point, it was nearly 70 billion people in this world. That's a lot of them.
Wow.
That's how they got soul family status with everyone. They then brought in dimensional technology that was meant for vessels only and installed it on Earth so that they could take one continent out of a timeline and put it back into a deep, distant timeline, one by one by one by one by one, so they can get to the point to create what's called the first species of Earth. There are 72 first species of Earth because every time Earth was recaptured, they tried to rearrange the timelines. But once you have sentience that's born, you can't erase the sentience, and Earth has to adopt that as a first species. So the time wars are all about creating the first sentience. Well, we have 72 first species now.
Wow.
And as many as 6,000 different refugee species who've come to live on our world because their worlds are being decimated or destroyed.
Wow.
And Earth has always been this point where souls migrate to it, they migrate away. I call it like, the ducks in the winter, you got, the massive flowing flows of ducks going that way. But Earth is this migration center because it has a graduation timeline that's very impressive. You have 100% free will here. Come in with blank mind. It's very important. There are other worlds that you remember all of your past life. You speak by the time you're 4 months old. We go through this growing process. That is cherished in other worlds.
It seems like it could also be a disability if you're being programmed and manipulated and taken over, and then there's that element of soul contracts, which you mentioned, that where as the soul comes in, it can be bounced, which is one way of shoving us off of our path. And another one is adding fine print or adding
Exactly.
So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it started in Lemuria. Lemuria was a really high consciousness. Earth was its true seventh dimensional status. It was creating DNA, and it was inviting other species to come live here for a while so that they could live on above these womb chakras and create DNA and then take it to a new world in unity to this new world. They would never force bring DNA to a new world. Earth is also capable of psychically teleporting, transporting the DNA wisdom that's created in these womb chakras to a blank Akashic record planet that's about to invite its first group of souls to come and live on it. That's its purpose. During Lemurian times, there were air cities all over, there were ground cities, and there was as many as 5,000 different species that came here to work with Earth to create DNA to spread. Well, the guys had gotten their little fingers in there and started creating their drama within inside, and as the society began to build to its peak, factions formed in it. You had spiritual factions, you had scientific factions, you had no technology factions, high technology factions, and these factions in the separation. The separation is what took Earth from a seventh dimensional status to a sixth dimensional. So it literally lost a whole quotient of its exponential energy. The separation caused a mass migration away. Earth was left undefended. It was captured. That's the first fall of Lemuria. The multidimensional beings who were here orchestrated that capture, because they had gotten in. The new beings that came to take over Earth reanimated Lemuria with the leftover refugee population here, instilled domination and control, and began an incarnation pattern to bring in more of the kinds that they wanted from those that were dominated and controlled. At this point, the good guys of the rest of the universe said, we have to do something about this. But there was a huge debate. The Ascended Masters, the philosophers, there's a galactic sentience that created war in another galaxy, and that galactic sentience allowed it to come here. This was known as the first mistake of the Prime Creator. The galaxy we were in wasn't ready for war. It wasn't set for war, but it's here now. So they took way too long to figure out a result for it. At that point, many species began taking up war to defend themselves.
Keyword. I mean, there was a lot of information that just played, but these last set of keywords here, the first Prime Creator's mistake. And this is where some of the material challenged a lot of people back then. Prime Creators can make mistakes.
Still does today.
Yes, they can.
Still hear questions about it.
Yep. Yes, they can. They are fallible, just like the Pope.
And it's great to see that reflection of Prime Creator making mistakes, and we make mistakes, and mistakes are natural. It's great to hear that.
It's the concept of free will as well, isn't it? Free will universe, free will galaxy. So we want to bring war. War comes. It's a great concept.
And this last part here, this galaxy wasn't ready for war.
Especially when you think about how war. Oops.
Go ahead.
So my internet's a little sketchy. Yeah, what it would have been like to have war that was perfected on other places and spaces, and then all of a sudden cast upon a galaxy that wasn't ready for it, that had so much technology within it already. This is a frightening concept.
Yeah, so somebody is asking the big picture, what was the wisdom in creating war, if any? Well, the whole point was free will. What are the excesses of free will that war can open you up to? It was about exploring free will. That's why war came through, as a rapid acceleration into the free will choices that can connect you or disconnect you to source. and the infinite journey to reconnect or disconnect again.
It's still free will, isn't it?
Still free will. And the exercise of free will is what many souls have to go through to get considered to be whole. They've used their free will for long enough to sustain enough life force and choices that they're still literally at the leading edge of what light can or cannot do, defining it or keeping it infinite.
And so the game was all very much already at play at this point, because I think you mentioned before that the multidimensional beings actually lured this war into the galaxy.
Sure, because they knew it wasn't ready, and that it would have a perfect mega splash outcome. One that would get the gods and the higher dimensional entities to notice, and if they didn't start acting, they would lose control of it. And as predicted, many of them didn't act. Over extended periods of time, they just let it play out. Free will, free will, free will. And didn't interfere, which set up the toxic creations that were here. Because of these beings knew they wouldn't react, that they would have a tremendous time to refine war in this particular galaxy. When the ancients of ancients left this galaxy, they left our programmable DNA, 900,000 different versions of humans, spread everywhere. Okay? And no longer their technology, there's no longer the high-level masters running their technology. The technology has been exposed to so much celestial energy, we became sentient, like and from artificial to regular soul-based beings.
So did they invoke karma for doing that?
Yes. But so karma is also what brought the teaching of war here.
Okay.
And is this what brought the multidimensional beings even further into the game themselves? Because ultimately this had to happen in order for them to be here, for the spiritual incarnation to happen, in order for this process to come to its resolution, surely.
The answer is yes. There's 12 and 15D chess going on. So they're invested and involved in all of its linear and non-linear experiences.
I think since this series, haven't you spoken about the quarantine grid actually being dismantled?
Yes, and now it's just a blockade. Ships can still get in and out, but they're maintaining no off-world DNA trade. So you have to go through a search to get out, or they have to smuggle it out.
Just like a police border.
Yeah.
Like a roadblock.
That's got to be positive, though, for incarnating beings, yes?
Eric, does the Akashic Records change every time a choice is made due to free will? No, because everything is a part of the infinite potential algorithm. Otherwise, wouldn't they be able to look at the Akashic Records to better manage the fall of Lemuria? There's many different aspects to the fall of Lemuria, because Lemuria is not one singular realm. It's tens of millions of realms layered on top of each other. That was a different time in Earth's history where the power levels of this planet were 1 trillion times higher than what it was. And that was the types of average souls that lived on this planet were extremely high frequency, high vibration, and could live in many dimensions simultaneously. This world is meant and designed and set up for the highest of consciousness beings and the lowest of consciousness beings to go through rapid elevations.
I remember, Andrew, a radio show with Lance sometime after these videos were recorded, where you were tapping into Lemuria, and you said that they were amazed that their prediction model was talking back to it. And then you talked about Project Atlas and spoke to them directly. And I remember that just being such a powerful show.
Yeah, if people don't know the frame of reference, so after I'd done these videos, I would regularly come on and do a little more galactic history stuff. And there was an episode where I had been going through my own gremlin challenges to get on and off, and it led up to something where I'm like, well, what is going on here? And I looked deep into something, and I was like, I can contact it. And I did. And then it started communicating live to us. And I had a full interaction with a science community that was on the other side that had to go through a debate process if I was real.
And there was a moment where you said to them, Atlas has failed. And Lance became extremely emotional, and even me back in that day, I could feel the response of all of those people who had people locked outside of time that were trying to correct their timeline, just sort of like realize that what you were saying was truth. Such a powerful moment.
Atlas has failed. Oh, that was a big wake-up call to a lot of beings out there.
I could feel it when it happened.
Because there was no way to get concrete proof if it succeeded or failed. Until finally I said it failed.
Within their own prediction models, it spoke back to it and exposed its own failure. Powerful.
Yeah, it brings tears to my eyes right now too.
Yeah, man, and just powerful.
See, that's the higher spirit working through me at that point, knowing that what would humanity hear? What would they really hear? Frequency, vibration. What do trillions of souls share in common? The last-ditch hope to save our conscious record. Okay? To not be forgotten.
Can you just explain to us what Atlas is? Because Big Picture would like to know, and so would I.
Let me get through the tears. Atlas was the last hope that our gene seed, the totality of what we were, that were both Lemurians and Atlanteans, who were time-traveling races and species and cultures that just happened to land on a common timeline during one of their many great evacuations. And they fought each other for a while, and then they stopped and realized that they were each other's ancestors. And so they took all of the gene records that were living on the surface, subsurface, and astral, and codified it to a gene seed, so that the Atlanteans and the Lemurians would all have a actual line out of uncreation or being a forgotten being, where your Akashic record was, physical record was lost, but only existed in the astral frequencies of the planet. Or if it was a strong enough timeline erasure, even from the planet's consciousness also. And it was an attempt to make sure that no matter how minimal the connection you have, that there would always be a way back into time. Because of the time erasures that were eventually coming and consuming the planet from the multiple timeline wars that had created uncreational events over and over and over again. And Project Atlas was the attempt to connect everyone's gene seed together and give a way out, and that represents there was no way out. There would be billions of years in the freaking repetition. The hairball, that's what I called it. But also that the future that they didn't get to predict gave them another chance. And basically my message back to them is they had to think farther than they'd ever done before. And it's because I was telling them I was 50 million years into your future. And that was it was inconceivable to them at that particular time. I would have been a million degrees of separation, or a billion degrees of separation to them. You got to fathom that. Really just ponder that. Now, I've gone back to this moment, and I was not the only algorithm to talk back to them. I was like the 20th. Okay?
How did they know you're real then, Andrew? You said they didn't know if you were real at first.
I said, prove it. I'm inside the program. Turn me off and I'll turn myself back on. They went through a challenging process, a debate process, and I entered their debate fields too, to prove I was a living being in a future.
Sounds like Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's some cool shit.
Yeah. So Atlantean Lemurians, that's what Project Atlas was, getting all their gene seeds together. But the gene seed also defined their angelic and not so angelic processes, which solidified the binary light versus dark process here. Eric, was this communication done here? No, I was bilocated. I was here and there simultaneously. That happens frequently with me.
And live on air.
Yeah, and live on air. The big picture, in that instance, I went backwards in times and connected to their quantum computers of their history.
Did they ask you anything, Andrew? I mean, you've said what you were saying to them. Did they ask you any?
I can't remember everything they asked me. You got to realize, but yeah, they interrogated me. But I actually
sit down, Andrew.
It's not a negative interrogation. They know that was a hard questioning phase. But I immediately went in front of their group of I don't know how to describe it, like their science committee that has to approve all anomalies, even for them. And I went in front of that and proved to them I was real. So their greatest naysayers.
Because there was split opinion at first, wasn't it, Andrew? And
yeah.
It was those guys that were holding back the opinion. And
yeah. We'll have to find that clip and react to that clip.
There was a powerful moment. I remember it very well.
Yeah, and if anybody else has suggestions, go on into the chat room and make a comment of what other clips you might want us to react to. So how many minutes are left in this video? Like 8?
Five. We've got 5 minutes left, have we? Yeah, we do.
Okay, let's move on to another clip because it's just a bunch of nothing significant at the end. You guys want to pick another clip?
I don't know about me. Does it feel right continuing on with galactic history? I think
let's move on to another clip because there's nothing really left in that one of significance.
Should go into number 2, Joe.
So, Eric, were you able to give them any words of hope based on what is happening to all of us today? Yes, I did. I showed them a way around the galactic erasure process.
Okay, we're back. This is part 2. This is Lance with Andrew Bartzis.
How you doing?
And we are talking. We just left off talking about the Lemurian era leapfrogging into the future to make corrections. So maybe we can pick up where we left off.
Okay. Lemurian air cities are a local reality that literally is in the air, but in between the cells of every atom is an infinite amount of space. So an air city can be out of reality and in between the cells of the earth and still be an air city out of phase of reality. So when they began to create dimensional that created time travel effects, the air city would go into Earth and then time travel that piece of rock and come back into the air so that they can influence the timeline on a soul family level and on a DNA level. The people in the air city were looking for versions of themselves to correct. Some of them may have gotten darkness instilled into them. They would healings on different people. They would at times literally create an invasion force because at the time the dark would have had a planet. Going through time, making corrections in a system where you have 5,000 other species creating time travel effects isn't easy. So You need a lot of cities to continually counter this. Where we are right now, 2011 to 2014, every single bit of the time warp is about right now. It's about propaganda coming out. Propaganda that's thousands of years old, hundreds of years old, millions of years old. This propaganda influences the awakening, which is the end of the process where we must have graduation timeline. Absolutely, it's the prime creator's will. So, what is a Lemurian air city? A group of people come together, manifest, and with that energy create a very dreamlike reality. And that dreamlike reality takes form in the upper atmosphere where the aurora borealis is. The aurora borealis is the Earth dreamtime sentience, and it's where the sun brings energy to it, so that that system of energy has reality behind it. The ship, the city itself, has its own version of a unity conscious drive, where it can go to any part of the galaxy or any part of the universe, as long as they can remote view or remote experience those other places. After Lemuria went through its first fall and went to its raise again, we go from, we'll call it 30 million years. Okay. Simply because they had to leapfrog backwards and they had to frog forward. Then they had to figure out each time Earth was teleported, the old timeline wars ended because the XY axis of the planet could no longer be used as a function for creating a timeline. Right. But the sentience that was part of the old timeline was still on the Earth, and Earth adopted those as new first species. Those new first species became part of the Lemurian society and left. Oh. When they left, they migrated away and became part of the polluted reality that was out there with drama and got forced back here. This is this endless come and go from Earth. Lemuria's second raise, where it fell and it raised, as the air cities figured out this timeline between here, this time between here, and that part of vibratory space, they could try to push out as many of the negative incarnating souls that were being forced at us from as many 1,000 or 7,000 other planets that were under domination and control.
Wow. That's a big job. Successful have they been at?
Well, here now.
Right.
We're here now.
Well, yes. So the really exciting part to me is that all of this has to be wrapped up in 2011 and 2014. Correct. So we are in the final.
You have to have graduations. You have to have graduators.
And what happens to the people who are not, quote, ready? Is that even an option?
Earth can bilocate and create multiple versions of itself and allow the separation of densities of people that are ready or not.
So that's where you have this concept of different timelines for people who are totally asleep, people who do not want to awaken, who would rather just continue on like this and have an experience of light and dark. So that is a possibility. A fraction.
It's through dream time, though.
Oh.
So we are a unity dreamtime society. That our world is set up. We have a global dream time. Okay. All of our people have a global dream center. We live in sacred geometry cities that prevent us from going into the global dream time.
Okay.
The event is all of us for a brief second experiencing unified global dream time.
Okay.
And the more and more we get exposed to it, the more and more the awake people begin to experience synchronicity, deja vu, shared dreams, and then the next layer up of awake people begin to interact with the two and teach. Like, you have a kid that has a shared dream with a mother or a father or something to that effect. It spreads, and there's no way the system can stop people sharing that
one-on-one.
One-on-one.
Right. Even though there is highly developed technology to observe, monitor, there's mind control, and so on and so forth. Now, you mentioned the event. There was a television show that came on and was aired briefly called Event, about everybody collapsing and unconscious, and they accessed their future lives, and I don't remember the whole story, but it seems like it was a foreshadowing. And doesn't the dark use the Hollywood film industry to see
soft disclosure?
Yeah, soft disclosure. yeah. So they can say, well, we told them what was coming.
Well, soft disclosure exists for many reasons. At times, it's just a really creative person coming up with an incredible storyline.
Right.
And at other times, they're influenced that say, do this because he needs it.
Right.
Or you have other people creating things to create disunity and propaganda. You know, we've talked about Nibiru and Planet X. It was a real situation with a real planet. It's been moved dozens and dozens of times. We, as a species, every time they re-air the series, bring it back. They've had to install technology on it that literally keeps it out of phase, so our fear consciousness doesn't remanifest it.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
And why Nibiru? Because in the past, the main domination and control beings had parts of themselves all throughout the timeline that could communicate central hive location because it's all the same.
Okay.
So, there's over 1 million different things that are of these 15 beings. 17 million of them now.
Wow. How does that all get resolved? And what is? Let's hear more about the event and how that.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
I just described. Well, I'll use this one I used before. You have children sitting at a breakfast table before they have their first period in class. Preschool's got that. Yeah. I had a dream that said this.
Take a pause.
And the guy had the same dream. And kid and the kid over there.
All right, can we take a pause there? Sorry, it's a phone call coming in. Hello?
Hi. I can hear you.
Okay, what did you think of that clip?
Yeah, so many questions. Can you, is it Unity Consciousness Drive? Is it like a planet engine?
Yes.
Okay.
And when we're all operating in global dream time, separate of the sacred geometry cities we're in natural living, we'll be able to move the planet or multi-locate it in many places at once. Because the journey to being a galactic seed planet is not one planet. It can be many planets, many times, in many places and spaces, offloading the genetic wisdom that it creates. That's why the gene seed was so important before. It was the totality of what the DNA was.
And it's the Unity consciousness energy that moves it?
Correct. And that allows it to be in many places at once.
And did you say before we had snippets of the Unity Dream Time before, like
yes.
happening? Yeah. And what's that? Is that still happening throughout as we go forward?
The event happened in August 2014, but what does that mean? I missed it? No. It just means there was a moment we were all connected, which means that the infinite potentialities have ended for domination and control. They no longer have an infinite process. Debt has been reduced enough where it's no longer infinite.
And we come to the kicking cooling down process.
Ready to be eaten.
So Andrew, the air cities, are they still able to interact with us now? Or because I know one showed up recently in China.
They all the time.
Right.
And Santo is.
Sorry, go ahead, Del.
You go ahead, bro.
I was going to say, this is the Lemurians and the Atlanteans reaching out from us from their time.
Correct.
And is that through karma, or is it a resolution process, or is it a mixture?
It's a resolution process and karma too. It's all of the above.
And Santos says about the original species, how many were there? Going forward into the awakening, or whatever remembering, whatever you want to call it, do we all become the first species of Earth? So there'll be, everyone has that.
Even though there's 72 separate ones, we all become the macro first species of Earth.
That's cool.
And so are those species all represented in our DNA skin suits now, or are they within this particular skin suit that we all share?
No. So
we
this world features about 140,000 unique human skin suits out of the 939,000 that are potentially out there. Okay. But we have the best and the worst here, watering itself down and pumping itself up at the same time. You have DNA that makes you subservient to certain personality types. That's why sports and news media personalities have so much power, because they have ancestral karma connections between them. Okay? All that stuff is being used when Dan Rather was, the CBS News guy, or whoever was the main news guy. You that was the trusted news source, and that person had a tremendous spiritual charisma behind them. Okay?
Yeah. And so the original first species, their representation with us at the moment, will it be that then other timelines are going to have to mold with ours in order for the remembering to happen, so that these other species come back into our reality?
Yes. Which essentially means we go back to Earth being broken up into 8,400 separate surface times. So each facet of Earth, there'll be 8,400 facets on the planet. Each facet will have its own unique frequency of time. With that, allows all the other blocked out timelines of negativity and positivity to naturally have a linear flow into the now, with a reduction of karma included.
And so is there any emphasis with regards to a form of hierarchical order to our reality, or are we all just equally co-creating? We just have to live
So there is a hierarchical process of reduction of karma that had to start in the higher realms, and it required a whole bunch of higher realm actions that we were not privy to over many periods of millions of years, where it took them to change ideologies. Okay, and then a greater acceptance of world seeding with greater intelligence. In the past, many of these higher light beings, they seeded a species that came after them and came after them and came after them. So there was incremental growth of different perspectives of how to grow life, versus the mass perspective that was humanity, that was spread between the 12 galaxies that were in contention with human DNA, body, 2 arms, 2 legs, human reproduction, was a dominating skin suit. Okay, it outweighed many other things, which created a grander scheme of thought, and how to use those things through free will. Were they truly machines or not? Many other cultures saw them as machines until they started gaining very unique, weird karmas that they never thought would come to their types of species. A collective debt for enslaving something without an awareness they were enslaving it.
And in my own processes, I have noticed that certain parts of these DNA give us access to certain capabilities that would have been used in a technological manner, but that react very differently to us as an I am.
Yeah. So can we meditate and focus on the space between particles and become out of phase? You can, but it would be detrimental to your greater health. You got to figure out also how to come back in, and it's a skill to learn to get out, and a different skill to learn to get back in once you phased out. So if you're going to take something on like that, you got to think big, not small. What's the relationship of the separation of densities to the species? I.e., is it a single species experiencing this? Multiple species on this planet having this experience? It's multiple species and multiple sets of timelines. Because you could have species who have a surface life and a subsurface life, and then you have others who just have a surface and an astral life. And then you're across the rare few that have astral surface and subsurface life simultaneously. One species after prime created revamped. Yeah, that was when I was trying to describe what was going on before. But this particular space of incarnation got dominated by the human skin suit. Can you concrete a set of requirements for an individual who wants to be a part of the graduating timeline? It starts with concrete faith. What is faith? What is spirit? And the journey to start with trusting that. Is there a scientific way of doing it? Yes. Am I the one that will tell you how to do it? No. And the same way, I'm not going to tell how people how to do faith. Faith is the same individual journey into knowing yourself. So there's your answer. Knowing yourself, questioning yourself, learning about multiple forms of observation. There's not one perspective, it's a million perspectives. And if you can only generate a handful of perspectives, you're missing out on the million of perspectives that give you the greater understanding of why a world works like the way that we do, because our reality is layers upon layers upon layers. Visible and invisible, seen and unseen, acting and interacting and creating and co-creating and non-creating with different aspects of ourselves to maintain infinite potentials here. Yeah, and the surface is the graduating timeline. It has always been that. That's why it was the most coveted spot, but they wanted to turn it from the most coveted spot to this where you become a cow in a field constantly being harvested, instead of it being the most coveted spot, because they made it such a challenge to live here. So current focus is resolution on the surface timeline. This is the timeline for this current reality for resolution. Yes, I've always said that. This is the now time. We have to battle for now. They're trying to outcreate now, and we have to outcreate now before they can outcreate us. Faith meaning full trust in yourself and the universe. Yes, and beyond that too. Faith is comes in many different forms, aspects, ways to validate and invalidate itself at the same time. Going to the edge of your unknowingness and challenge yourself to become known. That's that infinite wisdom that's connected and interconnected through you. Yeah, the Atlas had failed recording. You might be able to find it on Friends Who Like Andrew Bartzis on the their Facebook page. There are a couple others like Atlas Has Failed that are out there that very few people recognize. All right. Anybody have any more questions on that? Cricket.
Cricket. But processing there, Andrew. Just processing.
Back in the old days, I'd talk. I'm like, anybody there? Hello?
Mouse fart.
Like when I first started doing interviews years ago, it would be like that. I'm like, anybody there? Hello? You haven't said a word in like 10 minutes. Hello? Did I know you?
This is quite nostalgic, actually. This is I haven't heard you talking this way in quite a while, and it seems like there'll be a lot of people, new listeners, who have probably just been fed by self-mastery. But this is in the days when Andrew spoke about concepts that no one had ever heard before and that no one has since. It was completely unique and continues to be absolutely unique material.
All right, so the big picture, does that mean 0% reliance on spiritual teachers? At some point in time, we have to stop riding the coattails of teachers. The guru system must fail. We need peers in our life no matter what stage of growth that we're at. So yes, it doesn't mean 0% reliance on teachers. It's 0% reliance on gurus. And it's those people that can do the self-illumination teaching. It's giving you enough to go out and experience yourself, but also to not get hurt. Okay, that's such a vital part. We need to teach people how to experience multidimensional living without getting hurt and without hurting themselves, and giving them the right level of education. So yeah, less reliance on guru types and more authentic teacher types that, you know, live their talk and walk their talk. How do we outcreate the forgetting? Very carefully.
By choice?
Well, infinite choice.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there is a way that we can create mental, perpetuity in our minds. And if like a couple thousand of us got together and we're always sharing the in perpetuity technique, can we change the overall karmic balance of this planet? Yes, that's called prayer testing. They've done this before. That's why when humans come in mass, they can affect the world. Okay, that's why propaganda can be so effective the way it is right now. Now, what's going to happen to you? Okay. The system doesn't like it when you do that shit. Okay. It has defenses against it, and you got to be ready for it. That's why, like, so much of what I teach is about the spiritual hygiene, and then what it takes to spiritually journey and travel, and what it takes to get access to the records, so you can validate your own truths, and you don't need an external source to validate it. It comes from your own inner knowingness. Cricket.
It's great.
And I was
Feels
thinking,
feels good to have the cricket days back. I still got it.
I was thinking the same thing.
I was thinking about that today, what you've just been talking about, and like I was listening to this astrology YouTube clip which came up just randomly on the short thing, and it's great obviously to have those at times, but it just seems to me that there's so much of fixating on, you've got a problem internally, that's because of a planet or that's some motion. But what I like about your teachings is effort. It takes the effort, the discipline, and going into those dark places of your actual self and owning your own shit. And it's hard work, but it's great work. And there's like an easy way, isn't there? The validation of the light working way, which I used to be like, where I used to instant gratify myself all the time. Only really until I started digesting your teachings and seeing how many programs I had and how much shit I needed to sort out within myself. So yeah, really, really cool shit.
And the problem with astrology is that it teaches you a sense of powerlessness to the celestial sources.
It can. That's
exactly as and that's what was the problem with all of the Lightworker teachings, is they did come from a place of victimhood ultimately, and that was the difference with Andrew's. It's no, you can co-create with celestial sources, you can outcreate celestial sources. It's an infinite expression, and no one had been teaching that. No one's ever taught that as long as I've been alive.
The other thing is Andrew's brought in a new set of linguistics in his teachings, hasn't he? Which actually mean something when you start to tune into them. And now I've heard them sort of over and over again over the last 10 years or so, and they actually create more meaning for me. It helps you understand and perceive what he's talking about because of the linguistics he uses. Like nobody else does that.
Exactly. Nobody to this day, even to this day, does it.
No.
But it feels like you give your power away, and like don't get me wrong, astrology can be great, but it's just when it becomes obsessive and you give your power away to the planets and you rely on a planet to make you feel this way, and you make an excuse for all of your shit because of a planet. That's where I feel like there's a line, which I've learned about from my old days as well. I'm not putting anything down on astrology. It is great when you work with it in the right way, but I feel a lot of people rely on it. I used to do, to kind of give me a chart and a reading, but realistically, I needed to learn the skills of reading myself naturally and being able to do it without the astrology charts. Right. And that's where the mastery comes in, doing it without the cards, doing it without the astrology, and so on.
Mm-hmm. That's why I've always said it's the person. Yeah, to me, it's always the person, not the system.
Yeah. Yep. The system interacts with the issues that the person is having.
Exactly. And that creates pattern recognition, which allows you to go into the depths of reading the patterns.
Yeah.
Well, I think we got a bunch of questions here. Hold on.
Yeah.
From Amy Kruzik. Andrew, what concepts have you always carried with you since you were a boy and accepted the responsibility in the ball yard? Ooh. Ooh. Always carried with me. There are times that what I carried was radically different than the Andrew before that. So to not get lost in the story, that the story was temporal in the moment, and I was a non-temporal being first, living a temporal life, and that if I was able to see the many temporal points of view, both inside and outside of time, I could maintain unentangled observer concepts, where I could interact with the system and not change it, yet change it at the same time because of precognitive workforce, upgrading into the greater axis, because we all should be operating on a much higher power level. We all have ability to hack the system, but the word hack does not adequately describe what is your birthright, and learning how to use it can be seen as a quick hack. And how our language, you're asking the questions, whatever, how important language was. That was the other thing. How important the colloquial now language was. And that I would be influencing the world with my language far more than I could even perceive, even with today's ability.
Yeah.
Okay, compared to what I was then. Because I have refined my skills. Okay? I know I can't put it on full power. It attracts too much.
And that,
but I can
Andrew,
stay just under the level where they don't give a shit for an extended period of time and still do just as much work.
But also, Andrew, you as someone who knows you and has listened to you for so long, you have an exceptional moral code.
Yeah.
And work ethic. And that exceptional moral code, I'm sure you must have had that most of your life. And that's something that's allowed you to come to these greater truths, isn't it?
Yes. Even the moral code has adjusted as I became more aware of the nuances of life and stepping on journeys. Mm. So it was more of how the layered reality world worked for me, and that there were certain concepts, rules, ideas, structures that had to have no language to them. They were just something that I was accepted as the way to function into this reality. Mm. And I didn't have to know everything that was there, but other than the general concept of what has led to this living algorithm being able to do what it does.
I see.
The shared reality rules that made it possible, which was the bigger hack of the galactic historian, getting it at a time where something shouldn't have individual access to that.
So you had to plan a lot of lifetimes ahead, and in that planning, did you, because I'm going to ask a bit of a light worker question here, but the system, say like getting someone like Bruce Lee, obviously he was on TV and so on, what was put in place for you to be able to hide, to be in this reality and to do what you're doing now? Because surely back then when you came here, it was a totally different place, and they're just
I didn't come into one body. Okay. I was checkmarked in tens of thousands of bodies, which as soon as my DNA showed up, it showed up on the do not want list. But imagine showing up into 10,000 bodies. They have to individually scan each individual body, and I was bouncing between bodies that were checkmarked and not checkmarked, and thousands of other individual souls who were part of this grand shuffle of cards until the day I got born. Okay.
So you basically confused them.
I'm here, bitch. No, I'm not.
Mm-hmm. And so on that day when you were in the stadium, when you were a child, and that moment happened, did you see the system reacting to you?
No. I saw the system not react to my birth and not react to that, which was more important. It means I got through. That means the sailing was set. Okay, right. These are the conditions. If you don't get fucked with before this age, okay, you're good.
Brilliant.
This is the timeline. This is it. So yeah, I came through the back door, multiple back doors, tens of thousands of back doors, and I left a lot of front doors open. To confuse everyone.
Come in, everyone.
Yeah, but when I was being during the game and afterwards, I was understanding how infinite potentials worked. And because we had targeted it at infinite potential level, the system was never going to be ready for multiple infinite potentials all coalescing around one event, which is how you outcreate the system. And we can do it now. And I was joking with you guys in text before, we've got to come up with the next name of the show and the next name of the show. We got to master naming shows. Okay? Because what's the next show? What's going to keep the audience interested?
Right in the comment sections. What type of shows do you like? Let's hear your response.
No Jesus answers.
So go into that comments and stick it to the algorithm, because every time you make a comment, you stick it to the algorithm. Fuck that YouTube over. So are there any other questions anybody's got?
Not from me.
Crickets, I think.
Not from me.
Right,
Just lots of appreciation.
after what you were just talking about, yeah, a few crickets.
The Galactic Historian reads one of his books, Story Time with the Galactic Historian.
There you go. We can do that. So what about the future of censorship?
It's going to get worse.
We're going to be censored. That's my prediction. At what levels? Infinite levels of censorship. They're going to push and push and push the ability to censor until humanity figures out a way to fight back in such a way they can't Jan 6 us. There'll be new ways of marching that won't involve feet. Things that people could do individually at a time that prove they have power over a system that thinks it can predict us. We can absolutely have unpredictable concepts and ideas enter this world. And we can seed them in such a way that they will, in an unpredictable format, evolve. And that's part of the journey of, coming here 100 years ahead of time, is figuring out a way to influence a world that doesn't want to be influenced, and has gatekeepers to the types of influences that it doesn't want in.
So are all these gatekeepers around the planet now, is it kind of like that everyone has to leave the souffle to do what it needs to do now?
Yep.
And that's why they're not allowing DNA to go off and on?
Yep. Shut down the DNA trade. That stops the potentiality from moving. It keeps it centric to here, to this place, in its ever-evolving journey.
So here's a great little question. What else have other universes learned from ours?
Don't wait so long to fix it. Fix it as soon as it happens. The longer you wait, the harder it is to fix. And sometimes it's impossible to fix. You simply must deal with the outcomes. Time polluting here can pollute other places that you never thought would be able to be polluted. I've been learning about pollution. The infinite dodgers, those that are constantly putting off their karmic debt to the future versions of themselves or others. Or past. Karmic dodgers, That's another big lesson. There's going to be no more karmic dodging after this. It's more than a tune-up of the timelines. We're going to go from like a 10,000 string guitar to like a 200 string guitar. But in that 200 strings, you'll still have access to the infinite universe.
And this galaxy will become non-karma, won't it? It will have...
But all of the galaxies will adopt it.
Yeah.
All of the sub-galaxies of this universe, correct, yeah.
It's amazing to think of a whole universe that is giving out pollution through time to other universes and places and spaces in between, and not even in creation. It's an incredible concept to think about what that must be like for other universes.
That's the understanding of how connected and interconnected we are. The consciousness in general, as it wants to learn what it can do, what its potentialities are, constantly creating light when there is no light, traveling to the very ends of the known conceptual lines of reality, and saying what lies beyond it.
That's the ultimate question.
It's going to be some great parties when it all comes to play. Bye, bitches.
All right, guys, let's call it an end to the show. Dale, why don't you give away for people to get a hold of you?
So if any of you would like any psychic surgery sessions, visit daletobin.com. I've got an online psychic surgery date coming up at the start of next month on Zoom. I also do past life regression training as well. So if you'd like a one-to-one psychic surgery or past life reading, drop me an email and be able to get you booked in. And again, thank you everyone for watching. And Laura, Matty and Andrew and Joel. It's been an incredible show, really fun.
Welcome. Matty, give away for people to get a hold of you.
Okay, guys, so if you want a private session with me, you can head over to toothfeathersmedicine.com, go onto the menu and go onto the store, and you'll see a link to email me. There's also some light language videos on there that are shorts between 3 to 6 minutes that give very specific healings, and they're only £15 each, so it's a bargain for the kind of healing that you get for your money. So go ahead to toothfeathersmedicine.com and have a look around.
And Laura, give away for people to get a hold of you.
Yeah, hi guys. So if you'd like some basic and advanced shamanic training, sacred self-mastery, all that's going to help you out-create this system here. I'm on twofeathersmedicine.com, and it's been a great show. Thanks guys, really enjoyed it. And thanks everyone in the chat too, and thank you, Joel.
Okay, you all know who I am. You can go to my website, andrewbartzis.com. We've got a whole new set of products, concepts, and ideas for you to take a look at. And if you like what you see, give us a buy or have a session with us. And we will be back tomorrow for a Friday night game stream and open Q&A session. All right, Joel, take us away.
Healing comes in many forms, all the colors aligned. You are free as a dove when you choose, a sovereign state of being.
And allow this product to work with the 7 color chakras in our own energy system.
Meditations can trigger DNA wisdom and memories in light, out-creating our limited chemical memories. So sit back, relax, as we take you on a journey of light and colour.
Welcome everyone to the Scottish Highlands Galactic Historian What's Your Purpose tour. You're asking, what's my purpose? Your purpose is to go on this tour and discover the mystical, magical highlands and lowlands of Scotland. We'll be going from Edinburgh to Kirkwall, Inverness, all over the Scottish lands, as you can see on our incredible map. So I want to bring in Dale to talk about what is going to be included with this trip.
So what's included on this What's My Purpose tour, we'll get a chance to meet Andrew Bartzis, and we'll be able to ask him what our own purposes are, and we'll be able to ponder and try and figure this out in 10 days.
And each and every day we will be driving and I will be talking about the histories of the places that we are passing and going to. And a part of these attractions are what we are including in this tour to make it the most memorable tour I've ever been on. Dale, what are the attractions and everything that's included?
A Scottish driver and also a guide. You'll have your own very luxurious Mercedes-Benz coach as well. It'll include all transport and ferries, 9 nights accommodation and 9 breakfasts and also dinner included as well. So for the attractions you'll get free entry to Dunrobin Castle and Gardens. You'll also be tasting the fine whiskey at the Highland Whiskey Distillery tasting, where you'll be able to see the spirits being made and created. And we'll be also getting entry to Scarabray, the Garrigan Blackhouses Village, Callanish Standing Stones, which are so famous throughout the world. And we'll be also going entry to the Armdale Castle and Gardens, where we get the chance just to relax and walk around and just enjoy the scenery and the outside and the history. Also, we'll be going on a half-boat day trip to Stafford, and we'll be also going to entry to Iron Abbey.
This is your opportunity to take the pilgrimage with all of us to the Scottish Highlands, the 10-day bus tour around the Scottish Highlands. On the first day of the journey, of this 10-day journey,